Ladies and gentlemen, imagine waking up every morning with absolute certainty that your life is moving toward greatness. No doubts, no fears, just an unshakable confidence that God Himself has already mapped out your success. But here's the reality. Many people wake up feeling lost, unsure of what the day will bring. They face anxiety, confusion, and frustration because they don't have a clear direction. There is nothing more powerful than waking up each morning with the unshakable confidence that your life is moving according to a divine plan. Jeremiah 29 is not just a verse. It is a revelation that God is not improvising with your destiny. He is not randomly placing you in situations without purpose. From the moment you were formed, He already had a plan in place, one that is filled with hope, success, and a future beyond what you can imagine. When we truly grasp this truth, everything changes. No longer do we wake up feeling lost or uncertain about what the day holds. Instead, we arise with expectation, knowing that no matter what comes our way, it is being used as part of the greater masterpiece God is creating in our lives. The struggles, the setbacks, and even the delays are not indicators that God has forgotten us. They are simply elements of a divine strategy unfolding. One of the biggest misconceptions people have is that God is reactive, that He adjusts His plans based on circumstances. But Jeremiah 29 reminds us that His plans are already set, predetermined, and crafted with the intention of prospering us, not harming us. Even when life feels chaotic, He is still in control. This means that nothing, no failure, no rejection, no mistake can cancel the plans God has already established. When we start each day with this mindset, we walk in a confidence that the world cannot shake. Many people live in fear of the unknown, constantly worrying about the future, questioning whether they are on the right path. But the truth is, God's plans for us are not hidden. They are revealed in His word and confirmed by His guidance. The more we seek Him, the more we align ourselves with His direction. When we surrender to His plan rather than our own, we eliminate confusion and embrace clarity. We stop chasing things that were never meant for us and start walking in the assignments that were designed specifically for our lives. Starting the day with Jeremiah 29 is like stepping into a divine contract, a promise written by God Himself. He is reminding us that He knows where we are going and He is leading us there with purpose. This realization gives us strength in moments of doubt, peace in times of uncertainty, and courage to keep moving forward even when we don't see the full picture. If you wake up every morning unsure of your purpose, anxious about what the future holds, or frustrated by where you are in life, shift your perspective. Start your day declaring God's truth over your life. Remind yourself that He is not making random moves. He is executing a master plan. And that plan, no matter how things may look in the moment, is designed to give you hope, success, and a future beyond your greatest expectations. Many people wake up every morning feeling overwhelmed by the weight of their worries. The mind immediately starts racing. Thoughts about finances, relationships, career choices, health, and the uncertainty of the future flood in before the day has even begun. Anxiety becomes a constant companion, whispering doubts, creating fear, and making every step forward feel uncertain. But this is not how God designed us to live. Jeremiah 29 offers a different way, a way that replaces anxiety with assurance and fear with faith. When God declares, "I know the plans I have for you, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you a hope and a future," He is giving us a foundation to stand on. He is saying, you don't have to figure everything out on your own. I already have the blueprint for your success. This promise is not dependent on circumstances or emotions. It is a truth that remains steady no matter what is happening around us. Yet, the reason so many struggle with anxiety is that they are more focused on what they don't know rather than trusting in what God has already assured them. The enemy thrives in uncertainty. He wants you to believe that your future is unclear, that things are out of control, and that you are on your own. But the moment you start your day with Jeremiah 29, you dismantle those lies. Instead of waking up with panic, you wake up with peace. Instead of feeling lost, you begin the day with direction. The power of God's promise is that it shifts your mindset before fear even has a chance to take root. It is important to recognize that anxiety is fueled by the unknown. People worry because they don't know what will happen next. But God does. He is not wondering how things will turn out for you. He already sees the full picture. And if He, the creator of the universe, has declared that His plans are for your good, then what is there to fear? The problem is not that God's promises are unclear, but that we often fail to start our days by aligning our thoughts with His truth. The first few moments of the morning set the tone for the rest of the day. If we begin by checking social media, reading bad news, or dwelling on yesterday's problems, we invite stress into our minds before we even step out of bed. But if we start with the words of Jeremiah 29, reminding ourselves that God's plan is already in motion, we set a foundation of peace and assurance. We walk differently. We think differently. We approach challenges not with fear, but with the confidence that no matter what happens, God is leading us toward His divine purpose. Anxiety loses its grip when we replace fear with faith. It no longer has power when we stand firm in the truth that our future is secure in God's hands. The key is making this a daily habit, choosing every morning to silence worry by standing on the promise that He already knows the plan and it is good. Life is full of distractions, pressures, and endless responsibilities. From the moment we wake up, our minds are bombarded with tasks to complete, problems to solve, and expectations to meet. It's easy to fall into a pattern of rushing into the day, allowing external demands to dictate our priorities. But when we fail to seek God first, we risk moving through life without direction, clarity, or the peace that comes from knowing we are walking in alignment with His purpose. Jeremiah 29 reminds us that God has a plan, but there is a condition. His promises are fully realized when we seek Him with all our hearts. Seeking God first is not just a religious practice, it is a necessity for anyone who wants to live with true purpose and direction. When we start our day focusing on our struggles, we magnify our problems instead of magnifying God. We become consumed by worries, uncertainties, and the chaos of life. But when we begin our mornings by turning to Him, everything changes. Our minds become clear, our spirits are strengthened, and our steps are guided by divine wisdom rather than human reasoning. The mistake many people make is seeking God only when they need something. They approach Him in times of crisis, but neglect Him in moments of peace. But Jeremiah 29 makes it clear that God desires to be sought after wholeheartedly, not just in desperate moments. When we consistently seek Him first, before making decisions, before reacting to challenges, before planning our future, we open ourselves up to His guidance in ways we never imagined. His voice becomes clearer, His direction becomes undeniable, and His presence becomes the foundation of our confidence. One of the greatest barriers to seeking God first is busyness. People wake up and immediately check their phones, respond to emails, scroll through social media, or dive into work. Without realizing it, they fill their minds with distractions before giving God a chance to speak. But when we discipline ourselves to start each day with His word, especially with the promises found in Jeremiah 29, we train our hearts to depend on Him rather than the noise of the world. Seeking God first is not about finding time. It's about making time. It's about intentionally placing Him above everything else and acknowledging that without His direction, our efforts are in vain. Another obstacle is doubt. Some people hesitate to seek God first because they are unsure if He will answer, guide, or respond. But Jeremiah 29 gives a direct promise. You will seek me and find me when you seek me with all your heart. There is no uncertainty in this statement. God is not hiding. He is not distant. He is waiting to be found by those who are willing to pursue Him with sincerity. When we embrace this truth, we stop living as if we have to figure everything out on our own and instead walk in the confidence that God Himself is leading us. When we make seeking God our first priority each day, we experience a transformation in the way we think, live, and respond to life's challenges. We no longer operate in confusion, but in clarity. We no longer struggle with uncertainty, but move forward with boldness. The moment we place God above everything else begins to fall into place. Life is filled with moments where our emotions try to dictate our reality. Fear, doubt, frustration, and uncertainty often feel stronger than faith, making it difficult to trust God's plan. But Jeremiah 29 reminds us that God's intentions for our lives are already established, regardless of how we feel. Faith is not about ignoring emotions, but about refusing to let them control our decisions. Feelings fluctuate. They are influenced by circumstances, environment, and even our thoughts. But faith is anchored in God's unchanging truth. When we choose faith over feelings, we step into the confidence that no matter what we see or feel, God's promises remain firm. Many people struggle with trusting God's plan because their emotions cloud their perspective. When things don't go as expected, discouragement sets in. When prayers seem unanswered, frustration takes over. When obstacles arise, fear whispers that maybe God's promises won't come to pass. But faith reminds us that God is working even when we can't see it. The people to whom Jeremiah 29 was originally written were in exile. They were not in a place of comfort, prosperity, or ease. Yet, in that difficult season, God declared, I know the plans I have for you, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you a hope and a future. This was not a message for those already living in victory. It was a promise given in the middle of hardship. That means God's plan is not only active in seasons of success, but also in seasons of struggle. Emotions often tempt us to give up too soon. When challenges arise, the natural response is to quit, to assume that difficulties mean we are on the wrong path. But faith understands that obstacles do not cancel God's promises. They are often part of the journey toward fulfillment. Feelings say, "This is too hard. Maybe I should stop." Faith says, "God's plan is still in motion and I will trust Him." The reason many people never step into the fullness of their destiny is that they allow their emotions to make decisions that faith should be making. They let fear hold them back, doubt slow them down, and frustration convince them to walk away from what God has promised. Choosing faith over feelings is a daily decision. It means waking up and declaring, "I will trust God's plan even when I don't understand it." It means reminding ourselves that God's word is more reliable than our emotions. Feelings may say that we are alone, but faith declares that God is always with us. Feelings may say that we are not capable, but faith reminds us that God equips those He calls. Feelings may say that the future is uncertain, but faith stands firm on the promise that God already knows the way. When we build our lives on faith instead of emotions, we develop a strength that cannot be shaken. We stop reacting to life's challenges with fear and start responding with trust. And when we consistently choose faith over feelings, we position ourselves to walk fully in the purpose and future that God has already planned. God's plan for your life is not just about waiting for something to happen. It is about taking intentional steps toward His purpose. Jeremiah 29 is often quoted for its promise of a hopeful future, but many overlook the practical instructions that come with it. When God spoke these words to His people, they were in exile, far from where they wanted to be. Yet, instead of telling them to sit idly and wait for their situation to change, He instructed them to build, plant, grow, and seek the welfare of the place they were in. This is a crucial lesson. God's promises are not passive. They require action. Too often, people assume that because God has a plan, they don't have to do anything. They think faith means waiting without movement, but faith without works is dead. Jeremiah 29 teaches that while God's plan is already set, we have a role to play in stepping into it. He calls us to take action in our present season, even if it doesn't look like the destination He has promised. Many people delay their growth, waiting for perfect conditions. But God never told His people to wait for ideal circumstances. He told them to plant and build right where they were. That means preparation is part of the promise. If you are waiting for your future to begin, ask yourself, what am I doing right now to align with God's plan? Another key lesson from Jeremiah 29 is that obedience in the present prepares us for the future God has promised. If we are unwilling to grow, serve, or be faithful where we are, how can we expect God to move us into greater things? The Israelites had to trust that their time in exile was not wasted. Likewise, we must trust that our current season, no matter how difficult, is part of God's process. Complaining, waiting for an easy way out, or refusing to move forward only delays what God wants to do in us. Stepping into God's plan also requires a mindset shift. Many people spend their lives dreaming about the future but never take action in the present. They desire success but resist the discipline needed to achieve it. They want financial breakthrough but avoid the hard work of stewardship. They pray for opportunities but fail to prepare when doors open. Jeremiah 29 teaches that preparation and participation are part of fulfilling God's promise. If you believe God has a future for you, you must start living today as if you're already stepping into it. God's plan is not just about where you will be, it is about who you are becoming. He calls us to grow in wisdom, character, and purpose while we wait for the full manifestation of His promises. That means every step of obedience today is shaping the future He has prepared. If you are waiting for a breakthrough, don't just sit and hope. Ask yourself, what can I build? What can I plant? How can I serve? Because when you take action in faith, you position yourself to walk fully in the future God has promised. God's plan for your life is not a vague idea or a distant hope. It is a reality that is unfolding every single day. But for many people, doubt, distractions, and fear make it difficult to fully embrace that plan. They question whether they are on the right path, whether they have made too many mistakes, or whether they are even capable of fulfilling what God has called them to do. But Jeremiah 29 is a reminder that God's promises are not dependent on human perfection. They are built on His divine sovereignty. When God says, "I know the plans I have for you," He is making it clear that His purpose is already established, and nothing can change that except our unwillingness to walk in it. One of the biggest obstacles to embracing God's plan is doubt. Many people struggle to believe that God truly has something great in store for them. They see their past failures, their current struggles, and the uncertainties of the future, and they allow those things to define their expectations. But doubt is a thief. It robs people of the confidence and boldness they need to step into what God has promised. Doubt makes people hesitate when they should move forward, and it causes them to settle for less when God has so much more prepared. But Jeremiah 29 challenges that mindset. It declares that God's plans are for good, for prosperity, and for a hope-filled future. That means no matter how things look right now, His plan remains intact. The key is choosing to believe that His promise is greater than your doubts. Another challenge people face is distraction. The world is filled with noise, opinions, pressures, and temptations that pull people away from the path God has set before them. It is easy to get caught up in comparing your journey to others, feeling like you are behind, or chasing after things that were never meant for you. But embracing God's plan requires focus. It requires a commitment to seeking Him above all else and refusing to be swayed by temporary things. When you truly understand that God's plan for your life is unique, you stop looking at what everyone else is doing and start walking confidently in your own calling. Fear is another factor that keeps people from stepping into God's plan. Fear of failure, fear of the unknown, fear of not being good enough, it all creates hesitation. But God never intended for us to live in fear. His plan is not built on our abilities, but on His power working through us. Jeremiah 29 is a declaration that God is in control, and when we trust in that, fear loses its grip. Instead of being afraid to move forward, we step out in faith, knowing that even if we don't see the full picture, God does. The decision to fully embrace God's plan is one that must be made daily. It is not about waiting for the perfect moment or having all the answers. It is about trusting that the one who created you has already prepared the way for you. When you wake up every morning with a mindset that God's plan is unfolding, you stop living in hesitation and start moving with purpose. You stop questioning whether you are enough and start believing that God has already equipped you. His plan is not just for someday, it is for today. And when you fully embrace that, you step into a future that is greater than anything you could have imagined. No matter where you are in life, no matter what you have been through, and no matter what uncertainties lie ahead, one truth remains unshaken. God has a plan for you. Jeremiah 29 is more than just a comforting verse. It is a declaration of divine purpose. The reminder that your life is not a series of random events, but a journey orchestrated by the Creator Himself. Every morning when you wake up and align yourself with this truth, you are not just starting another day. You are stepping into the next chapter of God's divine blueprint for your life. When you begin each day with the assurance that God's intentions for you are good, anxiety loses its power and faith takes the lead. You stop worrying about what the future holds because you know the one who holds the future. You stop living in hesitation and start walking with boldness, knowing that God's plan is unfolding even when you don't see it. His promises are not dependent on your feelings, circumstances, or past mistakes. They are rooted in His faithfulness. And that means nothing can stop them except your unwillingness to believe and take action. You must seek Him first. You must prioritize His presence above everything else, making time to hear His voice before the noise of the world distracts you. You must choose faith over feelings, trusting that even in moments of doubt, God is still working. You must take action in your current season, refusing to wait passively for things to change, but instead preparing, building, and moving forward in obedience. And most importantly, you must fully embrace His plan, letting go of doubt, distractions, and fear, and stepping into the purpose He has already written for you. God's plan for your life is greater than anything you could imagine. It is filled with hope, purpose, and a future beyond your expectations. But the key to unlocking that future is how you start each day. If you wake up consumed by worry, you will live in hesitation. If you wake up with faith, you will live in confidence. The choice is yours. So every morning, remind yourself of this truth. God knows the plans He has for me. They are plans for good, for prosperity, for a future filled with hope. No matter what today looks like, His plan is still unfolding, and I will trust Him completely. Make this declaration your foundation. Live each day with expectation. Walk with faith, and never forget, God's plan is not just for someday, it is for today. Step into it with boldness, knowing that He is leading you toward a future greater than you could ever imagine.